Hey guys, it's Alaina. I've been getting a lot of requests lately for an Impressionist style video, and I've also gotten requests for Vincent Van Gogh inspired artwork, for instance his Starry Night, and I did actually mention this in my Painterly walkthrough video that I would be doing a video about this, and I've put it off because I was not 100% happy with my technique. However, I wanted to just go ahead today and share it with you as a work in progress. So I want to be transparent with the fact that this is my own interpretation of Van Gogh and Starry Night. It's not supposed to look just like his painting, it's just my inspiration from that painting. And I want to encourage you to use your own inspiration as well, and just take it wherever it feels right for you. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm starting up a new canvas that is 3000 by 2000 pixels at 300 dpi, and I'm using my Van Gogh Starry Night color palette, which comes with the brush set, and it's also available for my newsletter subscribers in the link down below. And I will be using my Painterly brush set and my canvas and texture brush set that comes with the Painterly brush set. And you can also, if you're interested in that, there will be a link for that. And if you have any other oil or acrylic type brushes, you can follow along with those as well. So to start out with, I'm just going to put a canvas down, and I think that I want to do this standard canvas. So I'm selecting that, and I'm selecting black, and I'm just adding that to my page here, and I'm going to let this be the background instead of, sometimes what you'll do is put it on top of the painting in order to have that canvas come down on top of that, but I'm not going to do that in this case because I want it to have more of an impasto look, like thick paint, and the thick paint would actually sort of erase that canvas texture. So this will just peek through somewhere, anywhere that the strokes are not really thick. So above that layer, we're adding a new layer. So I'll just name that canvas. And this will be the painting layer. And to start out with, we're going to the Painterly folder and selecting the dry oil brush. And with this brush, we're going to use different colors here in order to start laying down the foundation and just some swirls, like figuring out where the swirls are going to be. And in Van Gogh's, in his artwork, in his original, there is a city down below the swirls, and I'm not going to do that part. I'm just going to do some swirls. So selecting the darkest blue, I'm just going to start experimenting with this sort of swirly concept. Adding a bit of this lighter blue in here. I don't want it to be overwhelming, but just to have a hint of it going on. And I'll just keep doing a few more highlight colors in this way and then working my way lighter upwards. using a light touch with the pen so that it doesn't get really dark and just has these kind of little traces coming through, because I don't want the whole thing to get overwhelmed with green. I have designed these brushes so that they will blend dynamically as you're using them. However, if you have a different set of brushes, you may find that there is some overlap when you're drawing strokes on top of each other like this. You may just need to adjust a little bit because of that. Similar to how Van Gogh does his style, I just want to have lots of different strokes of color coming through here and sort of not blending so much, but just kind of laying on top of each other. But then if I'm trying to do a circle and there's already something there, I can press a bit more in order to kind of put more of an impression on that. If you notice on his Starry Night painting, a lot of these swirls get a bit yellowy in the middle, so I'm just going to go lightly with this brush and sort of swirl around in the middle of each of these just to have that yellow color in the middle. And make the brush a bit smaller. There's just a couple areas up here where I'm going to add the blue, since I had already done the blue down here, and then we will switch to a different technique. I wasn't really happy with how those ends were meeting there, so I fixed that as well with the blue. And I'm actually going to go with this really bright yellow and make the brush a bit small, and then just add a few really bright yellows in here as well. Okay, so at this point, I'm not 100% happy with what's going on up here. So I'm just going to take some more colors and sort of knead that around a little bit more. Okay, so at this point we have a smooth background with the basic shapes and swirls that we want to move forward with. And so I'm going to go ahead and mess it up just a little bit by going to my Master Impressionist brush here. And I'm going to add some rather bold looking strokes that don't really blend in the same way as this brush. And then I'm going to go in with the blender brush and mess them up a bit more so that it looks a bit more impressionist and dotty. So with my Master Impressionist brush, I'm just taking some of the same colors and just making some lines for now. And I'll take it quite small. Okay, so now I'm switching to my smudge brush, and then once I've tapped that, I'll tap it again in order to pick the brush. And I'm going to my painterly and selecting the soft streaky palette knife. This is probably the brush that I use most in these type of tutorials, and I'm really trying to use a lot of the different brushes as well, but I'm just going to use it as a blender for these strokes that I've just done. And in order to add more of a dotty impressionist look, I'm just going to kind of tap it around on top of these strokes that I've just done in order to add more of a texture. I'm going to make that a bit smaller. If you're wondering where these really distinctive Van Gogh brushstrokes are. We're coming to that. This is all kind of laying the foundation. So I wanted to have it as messy of a texture as I could. So this is part of laying that foundation. Now that we've got our swirls, I'm just kind of with this soft streaky palette knife, just kind of tapping into here and adding more of a thick paint texture. And then there's a really fun trick that I've just discovered that I want to show you at the very end in order to add brush stroke lines on top of everything, but I will wait until the end to show you that. So bear with me as we build up this texture. And some places that I have not done those strokes, I'll just do this a little bit as well. But I wanted to add those strokes in before doing this to have a bit more sort of dabbed color look on here where the color is a bit bolder. Van Gogh is not actually an Impressionist, even though he is very much associated with the Impressionist movement, but apparently he is considered a post-Impressionist because he has his own distinct Impressionist inspired style, but it's a bit different. But this is a technique, this putting colors down and then dotting them with the palette knives as a blender. This is something that would work really well for an Impressionist style painting, because that is what Impressionism is quite a lot, is dots of color that turn into an overall piece, but up close it's a bit of a mess. So that is what I'm trying to achieve with this. If anything looks too harsh to you, just keep on going back in and dotting it some more. Can occasionally, instead of dotting, take it into a short stroke like this, but we'll be doing a bit more with that later, so there's no need to make it look, you know, like brush strokes. It's more just to have this textured look in the background. just going through, and in a couple places where I did not add these extra colors, I'm just doing a bit more of this tapping. And then we will go in after this and add some of those distinctive bold strokes, after which we will add the brushstroke texture over top of that. I'm about done tweaking that, and if at any point you look at this and you think, well, she just ruined it, just keep that in mind as you're making yours. If you don't like any step that I'm doing, you're very welcome to skip that step or modify it however you like. But at this point, I'm just going to duplicate that so that I have a second copy of it down here, and then turn that one off so that if I mess it up at any point, then I can always go back to that point. So I'm going back to my Painterly brushes, and I'm going to choose the soft round acrylic brush. And before anyone comments this, I am actually aware that Van Gogh did not use acrylic, he used oil paint, of course. However, this is because this is digital art. This is named acrylic because I thought that it looked like acrylic paint. However, you can really make it whatever you want it to be. So in this piece that we're using it, it's just going to be in with these oil brushes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose these same colors that I've been working with, and I'm going to put in some of these distinctive strokes going round in circles that Van Gogh tends to do in a lot of his paintings. So several different colors all next to each other going in a circle on top of this background. And that is really big, so I'll make it fairly small to make these brush strokes. Placement of these strokes, I'm just trying to find similar colors and add a few strokes on top of that, just to add to more of a texture on top of that, but not really adding new colors where they aren't already existing. As with real Impressionist painting, it sometimes helps to zoom out a bit and just paint from a distance to get the overall picture of the different colors blending with each other and make sure that it's still making sense. With this yellow, I'm doing a bit more concentrated strokes around the middle of my swirls, which is similar to Van Gogh's Starry Night. So I want a few extra bold strokes in the middle here. And I'll go over it with the brighter yellow as well. Just a few more yellow strokes, and then I think that we're ready for a bit of extra texture. Okay, so you could just leave it like this. It's not as impasto as I would like, though we do have some brush stroke texture on these brush strokes here that we've added, and also with the tapping that we did, but I want even more texture. So we're going to do an overlay texture. So I'm adding a new layer, and I'm going to rename that texture. And I'm switching to my canvas and texture brush set. And down here at the bottom, we've got add stroke texture and add swirl texture. And I'm just going to choose for now the add stroke texture, not the large one. And selecting black, I'm going to lay this especially right here on top of the swirls. And it might not look so good at first, but I'll show you what we will do with it in just a moment. So I'm just laying this down right here on top of most of these swirls. And if you lift the brush and then go again, you'll get even more texture on top of that. I'm gonna wait with those. Okay, so now that we have laid down these stroke textures, it doesn't look so good, but I want to go to my adjustments, liquify, and I'm going to choose twirl left and keep it fairly big. And I'm going to try and twirl this texture around so that it looks like the texture is actually going with this swirl. So I'm putting my pen down right in the middle of it and letting it swirl a bit. And then I'm gonna stop, and I'm actually pretty happy with how it's looking around the edge here, but the middle is not looking so good. So I'm just going to make this brush smaller and then go in the middle as well. So now I just have a bit of extra texture on top of that. So I'll keep doing the same with all of these. Okay, I do want this to be subtle, so I'm going to take the opacity down just a bit, and then I'm going to take my eraser to the airbrushing, which come with Procreate under soft brush, and erase just the middle of some of these. And I'm going to take this down, opacity down about halfway, because I just don't want it quite as pronounced in the middle. I'm just going to erase this bit here as well, because this was kind of going into the other swirl. So that is my Vincent Van Gogh Starry Night impression, and like I said at the beginning, this is not meant to look just like his painting, but I just wanted to take some inspiration from what he does and try to do something similar. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and that it gives you some inspiration or some techniques that you might want to use in your own artwork. So thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.